It's been about a month since I made a video titled Music Genres I Loathe. Self-explanatory title, just me ranting about entire genres of music I dislike. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I totally could be, but despite 100% trashing every genre mentioned in that video, I'm pretty sure I didn't call these genres stupid in the sense that they're objectively terrible and there are smarter forms of music. Again, I might have actually said that, and if I do, it's my fault, and I take it back, because unless we're talking about the type of shit you hear in commercials, I guess, the idea that certain genres of music are smarter is, in my opinion, one of the worst ways to think about music. Dislike something all you want, but I don't want to hear you say something is smart or dumb. You don't rate every genre of music on the same metric. So what do you truly mean when you say, I don't know, shoegaze is smarter than jerk? Because the thing is, these are nowhere near the same genre. You are not looking for the same things in shoegaze that you are in jerk. Or at least you shouldn't be. That's pure fucking stupidity in itself, in my opinion. But that's clearly not the most popular opinion, because I see people call certain genres of music stupid and smart on a daily basis. Now, admittedly, I like a lot of music that's widely accepted to be, like, stupid, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Which brings us to today's topic, rage. Some people get a little confused on what rage means. Rage is honestly my favorite subgenre of rap, okay? It is characterized by being aggressive, energetic, booming 808s, synth leads, is known to take inspiration from EDM and general electronic music, and usually doesn't put a crazy emphasis on the rapping part, but contrary to what many people believe, rage doesn't only feature terrible rapping, okay? At least in my opinion. I've never been amazed by the rapping on a Rage song, but it's not necessarily bad, I'd say. And I just love Rage because it's hype as hell. Rage is a blast to listen to, okay? The reason I went into that rant in the beginning about calling certain genres dumb is because I find Rage to be a constant victim of this. People, especially pretentious music nerds, fucking hate Rage, or as they say, Cardi clones, which I've always found to be like so stupid. That is no different from calling like all grindcore Napalm Death clones. Some of these people will eat their own shit before admitting they liked a few songs off of Rest and Bass. I hope these kinds of videos I'll be doing can change people's minds about Rage and like other genres, but generally I just wanted to talk about and give some insight into this genre. I can't remember how I got into Rage, honestly. I've at least been into it since like 12 years old, and I can specifically say for sure though, that the song that got me into Rage was none other than Miss the Rage by Trippie Redd and Cardi, which is a very important song in the history of Rage. We'll get to that later. After discovering that song, I would go on to also get into Yeat a bit, but specifically I would get into my favorite solo rapper, who we already name dropped, Sir Cartier himself. I've loved and have been following the Rage genre ever since then, and I honestly don't think it'll be going away too soon. It's a sound that is constantly evolving, and allow me to show you how it's evolving. So, how did it evolve? Or in other words, where did Rage begin? I think it's very worth noting that there are so many opinions on what specifically began Rage and shit. Dude, I've seen people fucking say Yeezus started Rage, which is dumb as shit. No, it didn't. It may have inspired it, but Yeezus ain't Rage. No, Rage is a sound that began to find its place in the 2010s, but wasn't really defined yet. The genre name wouldn't even exist until the next decade. But really, there was no need for a name at this point, because before a very important album we'll be discussing, Rage was kind of like this handful of songs thing that was happening. There were no Rage albums, no Rage artists, there was no genre. Instead, there would be an occasional song that dropped from usually trap and plug artists that had the characteristics of energy, 808s, and synth melodies. Some good examples of this very loosely defined era are I Serve the Bass by Future, R.I.P. by Playboi Carti, Early 20 Rager by Lil Uzi, 0 Degrees by Matt Ox, and Off the Map by Sofago. Some prominent producers around this time include Molly Raw, Pureborn, and Metro Boomin. Famous Rage producer Filthy was also laying his groundwork around this time. Speaking of Filthy, he is heavily tied to a heavy turning point in the history of the Rage genre. Listen, you guessed it, everyone knows it. You can't make a video on Rage without talking about one of my personal favorite albums ever, Whole Lotta Red by Playboi Carti. I'd say almost definitely the most important Rage album, and considering this is the beginning of an entire subgenre, I'd say a contender for one of the most important rap albums in history, but I digress. Anyways, yes, this is where Rage truly began, because the thing about Whole Lotta Red was this was a Rage album. Remember what I said earlier, Rage used to be this thing where rappers would just release a song that fit the criteria on an album that was full of other stuff. Nah. This time it was just Rage, front to back, with some more calmer songs. While we're on Whole Lotta Red, we should also talk about Carti's previous album, Die Lit. While Whole Lotta Red was the first Rage album, Die Lit did come a bit close to a straight-up Rage album. There are some pretty ragey tracks on Die Lit, and it's overall a very genre-defining album, despite not primarily being Rage. Anyways, Whole Lotta Red was also primarily produced by Filthy, specifically on the most aggressive tracks, marking his place in the world of Rage. Whole Lotta Red is an insanely influential album, and with it opened the floodgates for the genre. A couple months after the release of Whole Lotta Red would come the song that introduced me to Rage that we mentioned earlier, aptly titled Miss the Rage. This is a super important song for the genre because this is where it found its name. Miss the Rage was named after the fact that Trippie missed the mosh pits at his concerts, or in rap music's case, rages, which that's something right there. I didn't really mention the fact that the term rage has existed within hip-hop for a lot longer than the actual genre. More specifically referring to the act of raging, which is supposed to be hip-hop's version of mosh pits. I find that nowadays no one really says raging and just uses moshing, but back then it was a more prevalent term and was specifically popularized by Travis Scott. Anyways, back to Rage, we should also discuss another part of Playboi Carti's influence, Opium, which is his own record label that for the longest time has been featuring 4 main artists with some others going in and out. These artists being none other than Carti himself, Ken Carson, who signed back in 2019, and later Destroy Lonely and Homicide Gang, who signed in 2021. Apparently ASAP Nast is signed to Opium now, but the details I could find are kind of iffy on that. Anyways, the Opium label is pretty important for Rage, as all 4 main tracks in the label have this dark, horror influence, some say emo vibe and aesthetic going on mixed with normal hip-hop imagery. A lot of you are probably already familiar with it by this point, as most of the Rage genre and a lot of other rappers outside of or loosely affiliated with Rage and Opium have tried to replicate its vibe, and some of y'all still refuse to believe Carti is super influential. Oh my god, bro. Anyways, 2022 is a pretty big turning point for the genre, as this is where we start to see this evolution in sound. The way Rage has been known to evolve is that as time goes on, the standard sound gets darker and crazier, and the specific rapper who would begin this trend of pushing the sound being pushed down this path is none other than Yeat. Yeat was this mysterious, like half-faceless artist who had this much darker Rage sound, not focusing as much on the atmospheres as his predecessors, and people fucking loved it, including me at the time. Soon this would become what people expected out of Rage, and later would release other records that followed this style, a very notable one being X by Ken Carson, which was an early example of a Rage release that really emphasized on those goddamn 808s. Which is also something that is constantly evolving in Rage. In 2023, we then would see the release of A Great Chaos from Ken Carson, which has gone on to be one of the most famous Rage albums of all time. This album really goes to show how much Rage evolves throughout the years, because listening to Whole Lotta Red and A Great Chaos back to back is complete whiplash. Rage was getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and it wasn't gonna stop. Because in 2023 to 2024 specifically, something that has been very important for the genre would soon become the norm. I am talking about the aspect of the underground. Now just wait a minute, okay? Rage has always been in the underground since its inception. You cannot deny that. I mean, I haven't even mentioned some pre-2023 underground Rage artists like Can or Tana yet. But while that's true, in 2023, it was almost as if the entire underground landscape suddenly became shaped by Rage, and Jerk, and Trap, and everything that was already normal, but mostly Rage, okay? You could probably already guess 2 specific artists I have in my mind, these being Osama-sun and Netspend, who began blowing up around this time. Che was also beginning his career here, but he wouldn't really get bigger until the release of Say So Says next year in 2024. Say So Says represents the next bigger evolution in Rage, this being the incorporation of more electronic and hyperpop elements. Alongside Say So Says, a very notable example of this is 2 Hollis, who released the song Trauma this year. Alongside 2 Hollis in 2024, we would see other primarily hyperpop, digicore, and general electronic artists start to make more Rage and Rage-influenced projects in 2025, such as Lucy Bedrock, Jane Remover, and Slayer. Edward Skeletrix has also been here this whole time, introducing an extremely experimental take on Rage that is very worth bringing up because of how influential it has been, but he has since arguably drifted more away from the Rage genre with his most recent endeavors. And as you've come to know, yes, this entire time, Rage has just been getting crazier, more bass, more energy, you already know the whole 9 yards. Now, it's currently 2026. Rage is just simply fucking crazy. That's the best way to encapsulate it. Right now, we have artists like Blood and Too Slimy who are heavily pushing the boundaries of extremity when it comes to this music. There were people complaining about Rage being too noisy way the fuck back when A Great Chaos released. I really want to know what these people be thinking nowadays. But that is Rage thus far, and oh my fucking god, I love it. This is such a cool style to me, and I've always wanted to attend a Rage concert for a long ass time. Some album recs for Krikalian to get into Rage would be Whole Lotta Red by Cardi, Flex Music by Osama-sun, and Rascal 51 by Blood. I love how this genre evolves, how it sounds, how it keeps getting more and more extreme, but as I said in the beginning of this video, I fucking hate how most people view Rage as dumb. Half the time, the people who say Rage is dumb and shit are looking for things in the genre that are like not supposed to be part of the Rage sound. Do not go into a Rage album expecting Billy Woods type rapping. That's just not gonna happen at all. Like, I think some people just simply need to be more open-minded and stop acting like every genre of music has to be graded by its complexity. I mean, even then, there are still Rage artists who incorporate a lot of more complex and experimental elements into their sound. Also, can we stop with the yearly Rage is Dying videos where the person who made it spends the whole video jerking off into their own mouth about the fact that, like, 1 or 2 Rage artists dropped, like, a maybe mid-album? Anyways, if you like energy and fun times in music, Rage is calling your name. But in the meantime, good talk.